Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance watching his fleet die. Through the wide viewing window, he could see human ships burning in the cold darkness of space. The Catamaran bioships moved like deadly sharks through the battle zone, their dark surfaces gleaming with an oily light that made his stomach turn. "Sir, the UHS Carolina is breaking apart," reported Commander Amy Foster from her position at the tactical station. Her voice stayed steady, but Morrison could hear the fear underneath. "That makes 12 ships lost in the last hour." Morrison gripped the railing harder. 12 ships meant 12,000 lives. Good people who had families waiting for them back home. Now they were just glowing debris floating in space around the Kepler 442 system. The enemy ships looked wrong in every way possible. They were not built like human vessels with clean metal lines and proper geometry. Instead, they curved and twisted like living creatures. Their hulls pulsed with a rhythm that reminded Morrison of a heartbeat. Worst of all, when human weapons hit them, they healed. The holes and burns simply closed up as if they had never been there. "What are our damage reports?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. "The Catamaran weapons are cutting through our shields like they do not exist," Foster replied. "Our hull armor lasts maybe 30 seconds before it starts dissolving. Whatever they are shooting at us, it is not like anything we have seen before." Dr. Lisa Warren looked up from her science station. She had been studying the enemy ship since the battle began 3 hours ago. Her normally neat brown hair was messy, and her lab coat had coffee stains on it. "Captain, I am picking up some very strange readings from those bioships. They seem to exist partially outside our normal space." Morrison turned to face her. "What does that mean exactly?" "Think of it like this," Warren said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Imagine you are trying to hit someone who is standing halfway inside a wall. You can see part of them, but your punch goes right through empty air. That is what our weapons are doing to them." The ship shook as another Catamaran energy beam grazed their hull. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge, and Morrison could hear the emergency klaxons wailing throughout the ship. "Sir, Admiral Ben Carter is sending new orders," the communications officer called out. Lieutenant Steve Parker was young, maybe 25, and this was his first real battle. His hands shook as he read the message. "All remaining ships are to retreat immediately to the Sol system. We are to defend Earth at all costs." Morrison felt his heart sink. Retreat meant abandoning the Kepler colonies. 2 million civilians lived on those planets. Men, women, and children who had built new lives among the stars. Now they would be left to face the Catamaran alone. "Sir, what about the colonists?" Foster asked quietly. Morrison watched through the viewing window as a Catamaran bioship settled over one of the colony planets like a giant predator. The ship was at least 10 kilometers long and covered in what looked like scales or armor plates. As it descended, smaller creatures detached from its hull and swarmed down to the planet's surface. "There is nothing we can do for them now," Morrison said. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. "If we stay here, we all die and Earth gets no warning about what is coming." Dr. Warren gasped and pointed at her scanner readings. "Captain, you need to see this. The bioship over the planet is not just attacking the colonies. It is consuming them." Morrison moved to her station and looked at the data. The readings showed massive organic processes happening on the planet's surface. Plants, animals, and even the soil itself were being broken down and absorbed. "They are eating everything," Warren whispered. "The entire ecosystem is being converted into biomass and fed back to the ship. In 6 hours, there will be nothing left but bare rock." The reality hit Morrison like a physical blow. This was not a war of conquest. The Catamaran were not interested in ruling human space or taking their resources. They wanted to consume everything. Every planet, every person, every trace of human existence would be fed to their living ships. "All ships prepare for quantum jump to Earth," Morrison ordered. "Emergency speed." As the human fleet powered up their faster-than-light drives, Morrison took one last look at the Kepler system. The bioships were spreading out to cover all 3 inhabited planets. In a few days, worlds that had taken humans decades to terraform would be nothing but empty spheres of rock floating in space. The jump to light speed felt different this time. Instead of the usual smooth transition, the ship bucked and shook. Warren checked her readings and frowned. "The Catamaran ships are doing something to local space," she reported. "They are making it harder for us to jump away. If we had waited much longer, we might have been trapped here." The journey back to Earth took 18 hours. During that time, Morrison gathered his senior officers to review everything they had learned about the enemy. The picture that emerged was terrifying. The Kethmoran Empire had been conquering and consuming worlds for thousands of years. Their bioships could heal from almost any damage. Their weapons ignored human defenses completely. They could prevent enemies from escaping by disrupting space itself. Most frightening of all, they seemed to view the consumption of entire worlds as routine. "How many ships do they have?" Morrison asked. "Based on long-range scans, we estimate at least 500 in the main fleet," Foster replied. "Each one is larger than our biggest battleships. They also have support vessels and smaller attack craft." Morrison did the math in his head. Humanity had maybe 200 warships total, scattered across dozens of systems. Even if they gathered every ship together, they would be outnumbered more than 2-to-1 by an enemy that seemed nearly impossible to kill. When the fleet finally reached Earth, Morrison was shocked by what he saw. The planet was surrounded by defensive platforms and weapon satellites. Ships from every human colony were gathering in Earth orbit. It looked impressive until he remembered what they were facing. Admiral Carter met with Morrison as soon as the Defiance docked at the orbital station. Carter was an old soldier with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting humanity's wars for 40 years. "How bad is it, Jake?" Carter asked. Morrison handed him the full battle report. "We lost 80% of our ships. The enemy is unlike anything we have ever faced. They will be here in weeks, maybe less." Carter read through the report in silence. When he finished, he looked up at Morrison with grim determination. "Then we better hope our secret project is ready," Carter said, "because if it is not, humanity dies." General Paul Martinez stood in the hidden facility deep inside the asteroid belt, watching humanity's last hope take shape. The UHS Titan stretched for 2 kilometers in the massive construction bay, its dark hull gleaming under the work lights. Unlike the smooth curves of Kethmoran bioships, the Titan was all angles and sharp edges, built from the finest human steel and determination. "She is beautiful," said Dr. Henry Blake, the lead physicist on the project. He was a thin man with wild gray hair who had not slept properly in months, and completely insane. "We are basically building a ship that should not be able to exist." Martinez nodded grimly. The Prometheus project had been humanity's most secret weapon development program for 3 years. When the first reports of Kethmoran attacks reached Earth, the government had poured every resource into building something that could fight back. Captain Susan Hayes walked up to join them. She would be the one flying this monster into battle, assuming it did not tear itself apart first. Hayes was one of humanity's best test pilots, with short blonde hair and steel blue eyes that never showed fear. "What is the status report, Doctor?" Hayes asked. Blake pulled out his data tablet and scrolled through dozens of warning messages. "The good news is that all primary systems are online. The fusion reactors are producing more power than any ship in history. The railgun system can fire projectiles at 30% light speed. The quantum displacement drive tested successfully yesterday." "And the bad news?" Martinez asked. "The quantum drive nearly tore the ship in half during the test," Blake admitted. "We are trying to manipulate space and time itself. The power requirements are enormous, and the stress on the hull is beyond anything we have ever attempted." Hayes studied the massive ship through the observation window. The Titan bristled with weapons. Its primary armament was a quantum cannon that ran the full length of the vessel. Dozens of rail guns covered its surface like the spines of a metal hedgehog. Most impressive were the new fusion torpedoes, each one carrying the destructive power of a small star. "Will it work against the bioships?" Hayes asked. "We think so," Blake replied. "We have studied the wreckage from Kepler 442 that Dr. Warren brought back. The Kethmoran ships exist partially in quantum space, which is what makes them so hard to hit. Our quantum displacement drive should allow us to phase into the same space and engage them directly." Colonel Dan Wright, the military liaison for the project, joined their group. He was carrying a folder marked with the highest security classification. "I have updates from Earth. The situation is getting worse." Martinez took the folder and read quickly. His face grew pale. "They hit the Centauri system yesterday. 3 planets consumed in 8 hours. The bioships are moving faster than we predicted." "How long do we have?" Hayes asked. "Maybe 72 hours before they reach Earth," Wright replied. "Admiral Carter is gathering every ship we have for a final defense, but after what happened at Kepler, nobody expects it to work." Dr. Blake wiped sweat from his forehead. "We need more time. The quantum systems are still unstable. If we push too hard, the ship could phase completely out of our reality and never come back. Better that than letting Earth fall, Martinez said firmly. How many test runs do you need? Ideally 50 or 60. Realistically, maybe 5 if we are very lucky, Blake answered. Hayes stepped forward. Then we do 5 tests and hope for the best. When do we start? Right now, Martinez replied. Every minute we waste is another minute the enemy gets closer to Earth. The first test run was a disaster. Hayes took the Titan out into open space and activated the quantum drive at minimum power. The ship flickered in and out of normal space like a broken light bulb. Warning alarms screamed throughout the vessel as the hull plates began to separate. Shut it down, Blake shouted from the engineering section. We are losing structural integrity. Hayes cut power to the quantum drive and the ship snapped back into normal space with a sound like breaking glass. Emergency teams raced to repair the damage while Blake studied the sensor data. The quantum field is not stable, he reported to Martinez over the communicator. The ship is trying to exist in multiple dimensions at once. We need to recalibrate the field generators. The second test went better. The Titan managed to stay phased for nearly 10 minutes, while Hayes flew it through a series of basic maneuvers. The hull held together, though stress fractures appeared in several locations. Progress, Blake muttered as he made notes on his tablet. At least we are not exploding anymore. Chief Engineer Mike Rodriguez worked around the clock with his team to strengthen the ship's structure. They added extra support beams and reinforced every joint and connection. The Titan began to look less like a sleek warship and more like a flying construction project. She is not pretty, but she might hold together long enough to fight, Rodriguez reported. The third test was when they discovered the weapons problem. Hayes tried to fire the quantum cannon while phased, but the energy beam simply disappeared into empty space. The railguns would not fire at all while the quantum drive was active. We can phase through their defenses, but we cannot fight back while we are doing it, Hayes told the gathered team. We will have to phase in, fire everything we have, then phase out before they can respond. Dr. Carol Lewis, the quantum physicist, had been studying the problem. The quantum field interferes with our weapon systems. We can only fire while fully in normal space. It will make us vulnerable. Blake ran calculations on his computer. Based on Kethmaran response times from the battle reports, we will have maybe 30 seconds to fire before they adapt to our position. 30 seconds to save humanity, Hayes said grimly. No pressure. The fourth test was the first time they tried the full combat sequence. Hayes phased the ship directly through a large asteroid, fired the quantum cannon at a test target, then phased out again. The maneuver worked perfectly, but the power consumption was massive. We can do that maybe 3 times before the reactors overload, Rodriguez warned. After that, we will be dead in space. The fifth and final test was interrupted by an urgent message from Earth. Long-range sensors had detected the Kethmaran fleet entering the outer solar system. They were 18 hours away from Earth. That is it, Martinez announced. No more tests. We go with what we have. Hayes gathered her crew of volunteers. They were the best humanity had to offer. But they all knew this was likely a one-way mission. The Titan was an experimental ship with untested weapons facing an enemy that had never been defeated. Anyone who wants to leave can do so now, Hayes told them. No one will think less of you. Not one person left their station. Dr. Warren arrived from Earth with the latest intelligence on the enemy fleet. She looked exhausted but determined. I have been analyzing the bioship behavior patterns. They always protect their command ship, something massive in the center of the formation. If we can destroy that, it might disrupt their entire fleet. How big is this command ship? Hayes asked. 50 kilometers long. It is less a ship and more like a flying city, Warren replied. But I think it is also their weakness. The smaller bioships seem to coordinate through it. Kill the command ship and the rest might become confused and vulnerable. Blake did rapid calculations. One shot from the quantum cannon at full power might be enough, but we would have to get very close. The energy requirements would drain our reactors completely. So we get one chance, Hayes said. Miss and humanity dies. Martinez put his hand on Hayes' shoulder. The weight of the world is on your shoulders, Captain. But if anyone can pull this off, it is you. Hayes looked out at the Titan one last time. The ship was ready as it would ever be. Her crew was prepared to die for humanity's survival. All that remained was to face an enemy that had conquered half the galaxy. Then let us go save our species, she said. Admiral Kate Thompson watched the Kethmaran fleet emerge from the darkness beyond Pluto like a swarm of metallic nightmares. Her command ship, The UHS Vigilance hung in space near Mars orbit, surrounded by every vessel humanity could gather. 200 ships against 500 alien bioships that had never known defeat. Range to enemy fleet? Thompson asked her tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker checked his sensors. 4 billion kilometers in closing, Admiral. At their current speed, they will reach Mars in 6 hours. Thompson studied the enemy formation on the main display. The alien ships moved with perfect coordination, like a school of deadly fish. At the center was something that made her stomach turn. The command ship was so large it showed up on sensors as a small moon, its surface covered in what looked like breathing flesh. Communications. Send one final message to all ships, Thompson ordered. Remind them what we are fighting for. Every person on Earth, every child who deserves a future, every dream of human expansion to the stars. Today we make our stand. The message went out across the human fleet. Thompson could see the responses on her screen as ship after ship acknowledged. The UHS Carolina, the UHS Denver, the UHS Phoenix, each one crewed by volunteers who knew they were probably going to die. Chief Engineer Mike Rodriguez worked frantically in the Titan's engine room. The experimental Dreadnought hung back from the main fleet, waiting for the right moment to make its attack run. Every system was pushed to maximum performance and the ship groaned under the stress. How are we holding up, Chief? Captain Hayes asked over the intercom. The quantum drive is stable for now, Rodriguez replied, wiping grease from his hands. But I am seeing stress fractures in the primary supports. We might get one good phase sequence before something important breaks. Hayes nodded grimly. One chance was all they had ever expected. Dr. Carol Lewis monitored the quantum field generators from her station. The readings showed dangerous fluctuations in the space-time matrix around the ship. Captain, the quantum field is interacting strangely with the Kethmaran ships. I think their biotechnology is affecting our system somehow. Will we still be able to phase through their defenses? Hayes asked, unknown. We are in completely uncharted territory here, Lewis admitted. The first contact between the fleets happened near Jupiter's orbit. Thompson ordered her fastest ships to conduct hit-and-run attacks, hoping to slow down the enemy advance. The results were exactly what everyone feared. The human destroyers fired every weapon they had at the bioships. Missiles, railgun rounds, and energy beams struck the alien vessels directly. For a moment it looked like the attacks might work. Burns and holes appeared across the bioship hulls. Then the wounds began to heal. The alien ships absorbed the damage and regenerated like living tissue. Within minutes they looked completely undamaged while the human ships drifted in space, their weapons spent and their hulls dissolving under return fire. We lost the UHS Mercury and the UHS Atlas, Parker reported quietly. The bioships are not even slowing down. Thompson clenched her fists. 800 good people dead, and they had not managed to scratch the enemy. Order all ships to fall back to Mars' defense perimeter. Maybe we can make them pay a higher price in closer combat. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, now part of Thompson's fleet. He had seen this before at Kepler 442, and knew how it would end. But this time they had the Titan as a last desperate hope. Jake, what do you think of our chances? Asked Dr. Warren. She had transferred to Morrison's ship to provide tactical analysis during the battle. Honestly, we are all going to die, Morrison replied. The question is whether the Titan can accomplish its mission before the fleet is destroyed. Warren studied her sensor readings of the approaching bioships. Something about their formation nagged at her. Jake, look at how they are moving. The smaller ships are staying close to the command vessel. They are protecting it. Morrison looked at the tactical display. Warren was right. The bioships formed layers of defense around their massive command ship, like bodyguards around a king. Maybe that is their weakness. If they have to protect something, it means that something can be hurt. The second phase of the battle began when the Kethmaran fleet reached Mars orbit. This time Thompson tried a different strategy. Instead of meeting them head-on, she split her fleet into smaller groups and attacked from multiple directions. The plan worked better than expected. The bioships had trouble responding to attacks from several angles at once. Human ships managed to inflict some real damage before the aliens adapted to the new tactics. Captain Tony Clark commanded one of the attack groups aboard the destroyer UHS Ranger. His ships dove in fast, fired everything they had, then retreated before the bioships could respond effectively. Direct hit on their port side, called his weapons officer. The bioship is showing significant damage. Clark watched hopefully as the alien vessel listed to one side. dark fluid leaking from multiple wounds. For a moment he thought they might actually hurt these monsters. Then the bioship began to change. Its wounds closed rapidly and its damaged sections reformed into new shapes. Within 5 minutes it was not only healed but actually larger than before, as if the damage had caused it to grow. "They are not just healing," Clark reported to Thompson. "They are getting stronger. Our attacks are feeding them somehow." The realization sent a chill through the human fleet. Not only were their weapons ineffective, they might actually be making the enemy more powerful. Flight Officer Lisa Chen piloted a reconnaissance ship at the edge of the battle zone. Her job was to gather intelligence on enemy tactics and capabilities. What she discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. "Admiral Thompson, you need to see this," Chen transmitted. "The bioships are releasing some kind of spores or seeds into space. Thousands of them." Thompson looked at the sensor data Chen was sending. Clouds of microscopic particles were spreading out from the bioships in all directions. "What are they for?" "I think they are terraforming agents," Chen replied. "If they reach Earth, they will start converting our atmosphere to match Kethmaran biology. Even if we somehow won this battle, Earth would become uninhabitable for humans." The news got worse with each passing hour. Human losses mounted while the bioship seemed to grow stronger with every exchange. Thompson's fleet was down to fewer than 100 ships when she finally gave the order everyone had been waiting for. "Captain Hayes, you are cleared for attack run. All remaining ships will provide cover and distraction." Hayes acknowledged and began powering up the Titan's quantum systems. The ship began to shimmer and fade as it prepared to phase out of normal space. "All hands, prepare for quantum phase," Hayes announced over the ship's intercom. "This is what we trained for. Let us show these aliens what humans are capable of." Morrison watched from the Defiance as the Titan began its attack run. The experimental ship flickered in and out of existence as it accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Around it, the remaining human vessels fought desperately to keep the bioships distracted. "There she goes," Warren whispered. "The last hope of humanity." The bioships detected the Titan's approach and began moving to intercept. But their weapons passed harmlessly through the phased Dreadnought. For the first time in the battle, humans had an advantage. Hayes guided the Titan directly through the enemy formation, passing through bioship hulls like a ghost. The alien vessels tried frantically to respond, but nothing they did could touch the phased human ship. "Target acquired," reported Commander Ryan Bell from the weapons station. "The command ship is directly ahead. Range 50 kilometers and closing." Hayes could see their target through the forward viewports. The massive bioship filled half the sky, its surface covered in what looked like scales or armor plates that pulsed with organic life. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Charging main weapon," Bell announced. "All power to quantum cannon." The Titan's reactors strained to provide the enormous energy requirements. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed and non-essential systems shut down as every available watt flowed into the primary weapon. 20 kilometers to target," Hayes called out. "Prepare to phase back into normal space." This was the moment of truth. If the quantum cannon could destroy the command ship, it might cripple the entire Kethmaran fleet. If it failed, humanity would die and Earth would fall. Hayes took a deep breath and reached for the phase control. Captain Hayes pressed the phase control and the Titan snapped back into normal space directly in front of the massive Kethmaran command ship. For a moment, the two vessels hung motionless in the void, predator facing predator across 50 kilometers of empty space. "Fire!" Hayes shouted. Commander Ryan Bell triggered the quantum cannon. The Titan's entire energy output channeled through the weapon in a focused beam of pure destruction. The blast struck the command ship's hull and punched through its bioarmor like it was made of paper. But something unexpected happened. Instead of exploding, the command ship began to scream. The sound came through space itself, transmitted on quantum frequencies that human sensors could barely detect. It was not the mechanical alarm of a damaged machine, but the agonized cry of a living creature in terrible pain. Dr. Janet Miller, monitoring communications from her station aboard a human cruiser, stared at her instruments in shock. "Admiral Thompson, I am receiving audio transmissions from the bioships, but they are not in any Kethmaran language I have studied." "What are they saying?" Thompson asked. Miller adjusted her translation software and listened to the intercepted signals. Her face went pale. "They are crying for help. The smaller bioships are begging something to stop hurting them." The Titan's quantum beam continued to tear into the command ship's hull. Where the energy struck, the bioarmor did not just break apart, It dissolved at the molecular level, creating a cascade effect that spread outward like a deadly infection. Hayes watched in horror as sections of the command ship began to collapse. But the worst part was the sound. The creature was clearly dying, and its death cries grew weaker with each passing second. "Captain, the other bioships are responding," Bell reported. "They are breaking formation and moving toward us, but not to attack." They looked confused, almost panicked. Through the Titan's viewports, Hayes could see the alien fleet losing its perfect coordination. Bioships collided with each other or drifted aimlessly as if their guidance systems had failed. Some had stopped moving entirely and hung in space like sleeping giants. Captain Tony Clark led a group of surviving human ships in pursuit of a retreating bioship. His destroyer UHS Ranger had taken heavy damage but was still combat capable. As they closed the distance, Clark prepared to finish off the wounded alien vessel. "Wait," called his communications officer. "I am getting something from that bioship. Some kind of transmission." Clark had the signal routed to his headphones. What he heard made his blood run cold. It was definitely an alien voice, but it was speaking in broken human language. "Please, help. Trapped. So long. Make it stop." Clark stared at his crew in disbelief. "Did that bioship just ask us for help?" Flight Officer Lisa Chen, still conducting reconnaissance near the battle zone, detected massive quantum disruptions spreading through the Kethmaran fleet. Her sensors showed the bioships were not just damaged, they were changing at a fundamental level. "Admiral Thompson, something very strange is happening," Chen transmitted. "The quantum cascade from the Titan's weapon is affecting bioships throughout the enemy fleet. Their internal structures are breaking down." But as Chen watched, she realized the breakdown was not random destruction. The bioships were reverting to something else, something that looked almost familiar. Dr. Warren, still aboard Morrison's ship, was analyzing the sensor data when she made a discovery that changed everything. The quantum signatures she was seeing from the dissolving bioships matched patterns in her database, patterns from known intelligent species. "Jake, I need you to see this," Warren said urgently. "The bioships are not just Kethmaran technology. There are other species integrated into their structure. Dozens of them." Morrison looked at the data Warren was showing him. "What does that mean?" "I think the Kethmaran do not just conquer other species," Warren replied quietly. "They absorb them. Those bioships are not ships at all. They are enslaved beings from conquered worlds." The full horror of the situation became clear as the Titan's quantum weapon continued its work. Each bioship that dissolved revealed the remains of what had once been a living, thinking creature. The Kethmaran Empire had turned entire species into living starships, trapping their consciousness inside biomechanical hulls. Dr. Miller intercepted more transmissions as the bioships broke down. Her translation computers were working overtime to decode dozens of different languages from species humanity had never encountered. "Thank you for freeing us," came one message from a dissolving bioship. "We remember our homeworld," transmitted another. "The pain is ending," whispered a third. Captain Hayes realized what the Titan had actually accomplished. They had not just destroyed enemy ships, they had liberated enslaved minds that had been trapped for possibly centuries. "All ships, ceasefire immediately," Hayes ordered over the fleet communications. "The bioships are not our enemies. They are prisoners." Admiral Thompson struggled to process what she was hearing. "Captain Hayes, please clarify. Are you saying the Kethmaran ships contain enslaved aliens?" "Affirmative, Admiral. The quantum weapon is not destroying them. It is setting them free. We need to help as many as we can." The battle zone transformed from a scene of warfare into something resembling a rescue operation. Human ships moved carefully among the dissolving bioships, using their sensors to detect signs of life within the breaking structures. Morrison's ship approached a partially dissolved bioship that had been sending distress signals. Through the gaps in its hull, they could see something that looked like a massive brain, connected to countless mechanical systems. "It is still alive," Warren reported. "The quantum cascade freed its mind from Kethmaran control, but the biological components are still functional." They established communication with the entity inside the bioship. It identified itself as Zekthara, once a member of a peaceful species called the Veltar. Its world had been consumed by the Kethmaran 300 years ago, and it had been trapped as a living ship ever since. "Your weapon freed my thoughts," Zekthara transmitted in halting human speech. For first time in centuries, I can think my own thoughts. The Kethmoran made us into tools of war, but we never forgot who we were. Similar conversations were happening throughout the battle zone as human crews made contact with freed alien minds. Each had the same story: conquest, conversion, and centuries of enslavement as living components of the Kethmoran war machine. Dr. Miller compiled reports from across the fleet. Admiral, we are in contact with representatives from at least 40 different species. They are all grateful for their freedom, but many are too damaged to survive much longer. The freed aliens shared crucial information about the Kethmoran Empire. The true rulers were a small elite who stayed safely on their home worlds while their enslaved bioships did all the fighting. The Empire controlled hundreds of systems and had enslaved millions of beings over the centuries. Most importantly, they revealed that other enslaved fleets existed throughout Kethmoran space. If humanity could spread the liberation technology, they could potentially free every enslaved species in the galaxy. Zekthara provided the locations of major Kethmoran strongholds and the quantum frequencies needed to contact other enslaved bioships. We will help you fight our former masters, it promised. Freedom is worth any price. Admiral Thompson found herself commanding not just the remnants of the human fleet, but the beginnings of a galactic liberation movement. The Kethmoran Empire had made a critical mistake. They had turned their greatest strength into their greatest weakness by enslaving other species instead of simply destroying them. Captain Hayes, what is the status of the Titan? Thompson asked. Hayes checked her ship's systems. The quantum cannon had drained their reactors completely, and stress fractures covered the hull, but they were still operational. We are badly damaged but functional. More importantly, we now know the weapon works. Morrison looked out at the transformation happening around them. Bioships were dissolving throughout the battle zone, but instead of death, it meant freedom for countless enslaved beings. Humanity had not just won a battle, they had started a revolution. Warren, how quickly can we build more ships like the Titan? Morrison asked. Warren was already running calculations. With the technical data we have gathered and help from the freed aliens, maybe 6 months for the first new Dreadnought. Then we better get started, Morrison replied. We have a galaxy to liberate. President Ellen Davis stood before the emergency session of the Global Council, her words carrying the weight of humanity's greatest discovery. The council chamber in Geneva was packed with representatives from every nation on Earth, all listening to news that would change the course of galactic history. The battle at Sol has revealed the true nature of our enemy, Davis announced. The Kethmoran Empire is built on slavery. Every bioship we fought contained enslaved beings from dozens of conquered species. Our quantum weapons do not just destroy, they liberate. The chamber erupted in excited conversations as the implications sank in. Humanity had not just survived an extinction-level threat, they had uncovered the key to bringing down an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Admiral Chris Johnson, newly promoted after Admiral Thompson's heroic sacrifice in the final battle, presented the military assessment. We are already receiving quantum transmissions from enslaved fleets throughout Kethmoran space. Word of the liberation is spreading faster than we imagined possible. On a mining station in the Vega system, Captain Nina Roberts watched her construction crews work around the clock, building humanity's new liberation fleet. The UHS Freedom was taking shape in the main docking bay, its quantum cannon larger and more refined than the original Titan design. Dr. Alan Tucker, the lead scientist on the improved liberation technology, joined Roberts on the observation deck. His team had been working with freed aliens to perfect the quantum dissolution process, making it more precise and less destructive. How many ships will be ready for the Vega operation? Roberts asked. 12 dreadnoughts plus support vessels, Tucker replied, each one equipped with the new quantum liberation arrays. We can free entire fleets simultaneously now instead of one ship at a time. The first major liberation operation had been planned for the Vega system, where long-range sensors detected a massive Kethmoran fortress. Intelligence from freed aliens suggested it was a major breeding facility, where captured species were converted into bioships. Roberts had volunteered to lead the mission despite knowing the risks. The Kethmoran had surely learned about humanity's liberation technology by now, and would be preparing countermeasures. Meanwhile, throughout the galaxy, the Kethmoran Empire was beginning to collapse from within. On dozens of worlds, enslaved bioships had received quantum transmissions containing the liberation frequencies. Many had managed to break free of Kethmoran control on their own, turning against their former masters, Zekathara, the freed Veltar who had become humanity's first alien ally, coordinated the resistance from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. Its bioship body had been rebuilt with human technology, creating a hybrid vessel that combined alien knowledge with human engineering. The slave fleets at Rigel and Altair have joined the rebellion, Zekathara reported to Morrison during their weekly strategy meeting. The Kethmoran are losing control of their outer territories. Morrison studied the galactic map showing areas of Kethmoran control. Red zones marked enemy territory while blue zones showed liberated systems. Over the past 6 months, the blue zones had been steadily expanding. What about their home systems? Morrison asked. The core worlds where the true Kethmoran live? They are heavily defended, Zekathara replied, but intelligence suggests they are panicking. They never expected their slaves to rebel successfully. Many are fleeing to even more distant galaxies. The Liberation Fleet's first major test came at Vega. Roberts led 12 dreadnoughts through quantum space, approaching the massive Kethmoran fortress from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The facility was enormous, a biomechanical construct the size of a small moon, covered in breeding chambers and conversion facilities. Sensors are detecting thousands of life signs inside the fortress, reported her tactical officer, both Kethmoran personnel and enslaved beings awaiting conversion. Roberts made a difficult decision. We use precise liberation beams only. I want to free the slaves without harming them or destroying the facility. We might need it intact for intelligence gathering. The attack was unlike anything seen before in galactic warfare. Instead of explosions and destruction, the Liberation Fleet fired beams of pure quantum, energy that passed harmlessly through metal and machinery but dissolved the biomechanical control systems that enslaved alien minds. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the fortress, enslaved beings broke free of their restraints and turned on their Kethmoran captors. The facility's bioships joined the rebellion, using their intimate knowledge of the fortress layout to help liberate more prisoners. Within hours, the Vega fortress had fallen without a single shot being fired in traditional combat. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were free for the first time in decades or centuries. Dr. Tucker studied the liberated facility and made an amazing discovery. The Kethmoran have been keeping detailed records of every species they have enslaved. We now have the locations of their homeworlds and the quantum signatures needed to contact survivor populations. The intelligence gathered at Vega revealed the true scope of the Kethmoran Empire. They had consumed over 3,000 worlds and enslaved billions of beings across 500 star systems. But they had also made a critical mistake. They had kept their victims alive instead of simply destroying them. President Davis authorized the largest military operation in human history. Every available ship was converted or rebuilt with liberation technology. The plan was ambitious beyond imagination. Simultaneous strikes on all major Kethmoran facilities throughout their empire. The operation began at exactly 800 GMT on a Tuesday. Human liberation fleets, supported by freed alien bioships, struck at 17 major Kethmoran strongholds simultaneously. The quantum liberation beams spread through enemy territory like a plague of freedom, breaking the control systems that held millions of beings in bondage. The results exceeded all expectations. Within 72 hours, the Kethmoran Empire had lost control of over half their territory. Freed slave fleets turned their weapons on their former masters, while liberated worlds declared independence and began rebuilding their civilizations. Morrison, now commanding the UHS Liberator, participated in the assault on the Kethmoran capital system. The enemy homeworld was a twisted nightmare of biomechanical cities and massive breeding facilities, all built on the suffering of enslaved species. There are so many life signs down there, Dr. Warren reported from her science station. Millions of enslaved beings in various stages of conversion. Some have been here for over 1,000 years. The liberation of the capital world took 3 days. The freed aliens helped human forces navigate the complex biomechanical structures while avoiding traps and defensive systems. When it was over, the Kethmoran Empire had effectively ceased to exist. The true Kethmoran, the original species that had built the empire, turned out to be surprisingly few in number. They were physically weak beings who had relied entirely on their enslaved bioships for protection. Faced with rebellion on every front, most surrendered without resistance. Some Kethmaran leaders tried to flee to other galaxies, but freed alien fleets pursued them relentlessly. There would be no safe haven for those who had built an empire on slavery and suffering, Admiral Johnson addressed the new Galactic Liberation Council from his headquarters on Inantar, Earth. Representatives from over 200 freed species had gathered to coordinate the reconstruction of their civilizations. The age of the Kethmoran Empire is over, Johnson declared. But our work is not finished. We have a galaxy to rebuild and countless beings to help return to their home worlds. The task ahead was enormous. Entire species had been enslaved for so long they had forgotten their original cultures. Worlds had been stripped of all life and would need decades of terraforming to become habitable again. The psychological trauma of centuries in bondage would take generations to heal. But there was hope everywhere. Freed beings were sharing knowledge and technology, creating new alliances between species that had never met before their enslavement. The galaxy was becoming more diverse and vibrant than it had ever been. Captain Roberts, now commanding the exploration vessel UHS Pioneer, led missions to distant systems where Kethmaran influence might still exist. Her ship carried liberation technology and medical supplies, ready to free any remaining enslaved populations. On one such mission, they discovered a hidden facility containing the last Kethmaran research station. Instead of more slaves, they found something unexpected. A message from Kethmaran scientists who had opposed their empire's policies. We tried to stop the enslavement, the message explained. But we were silenced by our government. Please know that not all of our species supported what was done. We recorded everything, the locations of lost worlds, the quantum signatures of extinct species, the technology needed to restore what was destroyed. The information provided by the Kethmaran dissidents would prove invaluable in the galaxy's reconstruction. Some thought extinct species could be restored from genetic samples. Lost worlds could be located and reclaimed by their original inhabitants. Morrison, now an old man, stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Galactic Council headquarters. Through the transparent aluminum windows,